Everything they told you to prepare for was wrong. Not false, just incomplete in exactly the ways that matter. You prepared for the work. You prepared for the pressure. You researched the company, practiced the interview, showed up ready. And then within the first few weeks, you started running into things nobody mentioned. Not in school, not in any advice thread, not in any conversation you had before you walked through that door. And what makes these things dangerous isn't that they're surprising. It's that by the time you understand what they actually are, they've already shaped how you behave, and you don't realize the shape has changed. If you're new here, Richter is the voice of the creator's mind. We don't do generic. Subscribe before this ends. What comes next is the version of this conversation nobody has with you before you start. Here's what nobody tells you. The workplace is not primarily a meritocracy, it's a perception economy. The quality of your work matters, but how your work is interpreted, by whom and through what lens they're already seeing you through, that matters equally. And in a lot of cases, it matters more. You can be exceptional and invisible at the same time, and you can be average and influential at the same time. The variable isn't talent. It's how well you understand the social architecture of the room you're in. Nobody tells you this clearly before you start, so you spend the first year assuming that output is the only currency. Then something shifts. You notice the pattern, and by then you've already built a reputation inside a structure you didn't know existed. The first thing nobody warns you about, the emotional labor of being new. Not just learning systems, not just proving yourself, but the sustained invisible effort of managing how you appear while you're still figuring out where everything is. You have to seem competent before you are. You have to communicate confidence before you feel it. You have to navigate relationships you don't understand yet while performing the version of yourself you're trying to become. That's 3 full-time jobs inside the one job they're actually paying you for. And nobody names it, which means you absorb the cost without understanding what's draining you. The second thing nobody warns you about, your manager's limitations will become your obstacles. They were hired before you and have survived the environment longer. But that survival doesn't mean clarity. Your manager might be conflict avoidant, disorganized, politically insecure, overly invested in being liked. And whatever their limitation is, it will express itself through the way they communicate expectations, give feedback, and represent your work to others. You will spend significant energy working around a set of constraints that were never explained to you, because nobody warns you that the person responsible for your growth is also, in their own way, still figuring things out. The third thing nobody warns you about, office politics is not something that happens to other people in other companies. It's the invisible operating system of every professional environment, regardless of how flat the org chart looks or how collaborative the culture claims to be. It's the accumulation of relationships, histories, loyalties, and resentments that predates you and that you will be navigating whether you're paying attention or not. The people who say they don't play politics are usually the ones most affected by it because they're the only ones who aren't tracking it. The fourth thing nobody warns you about, you will have a reputation before you understand how it formed. The way you responded in your second week, the thing you said in that meeting in month one, the way you handled the first difficult situation. People filed all of it, and they built a shorthand version of you based on it. That shorthand travels, and it travels in ways you'll never be able to directly observe. You don't get to author your reputation from the outside. You construct it through behavior, whether you're thinking about it or not. This is the territory the creator's mind is built for, not the official narrative of how professional life works, but the actual mechanics underneath it. The fifth thing nobody warns you about, feedback is filtered before it reaches you. What your manager says to you about your performance is not raw data. It's a version that has been softened, reframed, and edited for comfort, theirs mostly. The real information about how you're being perceived often lives in the hallways, in the margins of conversations, in the nonverbal adjustments people make around you. Learning to read those signals is a skill nobody teaches, but it separates the people who know where they actually stand from the people who are always slightly surprised when something changes. The sixth thing nobody warns you about: the person who helps you most in your first job will probably not be your manager. It will be a peer who's a year or two ahead of you, patient enough to explain what's actually going on, secure enough to not see you as competition. Find that person, not to extract information, but to understand the environment through someone who's already mapped it. That map is worth more than any official orientation. The seventh thing nobody warns you about: how you feel about yourself at work will follow you home every single day. And if the environment is one that consistently makes you feel small, confused, or invisible, that feeling doesn't stay in the building. It comes with you. It sits at dinner. It shows up in how you sleep. It changes how you talk about yourself to the people who love you. You are not separate from the professional environment you inhabit. You are porous, and what the environment says about you, even implicitly, accumulates into a story you start telling yourself. The eighth thing nobody warns you about: the first time you advocate for yourself, for a raise, for a different responsibility, for recognition, will feel wrong. It will feel presumptuous and uncomfortable and possibly even risky. That discomfort is not a signal that you're doing something wrong. It's the feeling of exercising a muscle you've never been asked to develop. The discomfort is the cost of the rep. Every time you do it and the world doesn't end, it gets slightly easier, but the first time will feel like stepping off a ledge. Nobody tells you that ahead of time, so when it feels that way, most people just don't do it. The map of the first job isn't the one they show you in the onboarding deck. It's the one you build through experience, through observation, through the quiet accumulation of all the things you didn't expect. Now you have a head start. Press like if this is the conversation you needed before you started. Subscribe to The Creator's Mind. The next video is already on your screen. Richter will be there when you're ready.